Hi, everybody. It's Kira, teen librarian here at PCCLD, specifically at Rawlings. And it is still Native American Heritage Month of November. And before I get to the book I'm going to chat about today, I once again want to remind everyone to register for the 2 live programs that we've got. 2 really great people, and tomorrow is the first one, and our registrations are really, it's terrible, and I feel terrible asking. This man is being very generous with his time, and he's a lovely, fascinating guy. He's from Pueblo, and he's prepared this presentation for young folks, and just nobody is registering. I need you guys to register, and tell your friends to register, please. It's really, really tough, when you go through the process of recruiting someone to do this for your library and for your county and your community, and then people don't register. It's really tough. And so I'm going to ask you, please register for Tonio Lefebvre's presentation, which is tomorrow. And I'm also going to ask you to register for the presentation on the 20th, which is later in the day. They're both great presenters, and I worked hard, to get them onto the schedule. And honestly, I'm quite ashamed that there haven't been more registrations. I know a lot of that has to do with marketing and telling people, and it's hard to tell people when people aren't coming into the library much. I've got signs up, but you're coming into the library to grab your books, get on the computer, you're not necessarily looking at all the signs. So I really want to just sort of beg you guys to sign up for these events. They're going to be great. Both presenters are going to be fantastic. I'm looking forward to them, but I'm also feeling really bad that there aren't more youth signed up. And okay, down with that. And now to the book that I will be introducing and hoping that lots of people read. This is a book called Hearts Unbroken. I'm going to hold it up here for you. It's a pretty new book. It was written by Cynthia Lytig Smith, who is a citizen of the Muskogee Indian Nation in Oklahoma. She goes by Sin, so when I refer to the author, I'm going to use Sin, even though I don't know her, and it feels a little weird. But that's what I'm going to use, because she said in interviews, that's simpler. She's got a long name, and so when I refer to her, I'll either say the author or I'll say Sin. This was also the winner of the American Indian Library Association Youth Literature Award. I'm going to tell you about a plot that's a little heavy. Not super heavy, but I have to tell you that the main characters in this book are fantastic. The dialogue is great. It's funny. You'll fall in love with a number of the characters. You'll also hate some of the characters, but you won't quite hate them. You'll hate them, and then you'll sort of see something about them that maybe you can recognize. Even if you don't like them, you will still see their humanity. And I think that that's quite amazing, that it's not so simply good and bad. There's a lot of ignorance and blindness and sort of unwillingness to learn. And there's some pretty terrible things that are done, but these people are all human and complicated in terms of what motivates them. And while there are definitely characters who you wish would treat others differently and wish would learn, etc., Sin does a great job of not just making them sort of stock characters. They're human, and there are reasons for the way that they act as they do. Even though we don't for a moment have to like what they do. So I just have to say that Cynthia Lytix Smith is a fantastic author, and I recommend that you read her. Every part of this book is great. There are a lot of characters, they're all developed, and all of the relationships, and there are many relationships, are fascinating. So I'm going to stick to one of the main sort of driving plots, or a couple of them, but there's lots that I leave out. It's great, so I just don't want to be on here forever. So the main character in this book her name is Louise Wolfe, who generally goes by Lou. And Sin has reported in interviews that there is a little bit of autobiography mixed into this book, but the vast majority is pure fiction. Sin did move to Texas in high school and experienced a similar relationship with her boyfriend and made a similar mistake. But other than that, I think she's everything else is pure fiction, everything she came up with. And so just a little bit about Lou before we get into the plot. She's a straight A student. She is from a loving, immediate, and very extended Native family. But her appearance is such that most people who meet her think she is white, which is quite difficult for her to navigate. So she and her family have moved to Kansas in the middle of her junior year. And we see a little bit of that junior year, or rather sort of right after it in the book. And it is important, but I'm not going to go into that whole story. Most of the book takes place in her senior year, which is also the freshman year of her little brother, Huey, which is important. So as senior year starts, let's see, Lou has her first year in journalism. She's sort of been recruited. So journalism is a class and an overwhelming activity. You know, it's the school newspaper plus. They also do video stories, etc. So it's very time consuming, right? It's sort of an actual class, but it's also time consuming activity. And she's really excited to be in that. And also Huey has decided that he is going to audition for the musical that fall. The musical is The Wizard of Oz. And each of these decisions pretty much prompts everything. Well, most of what I'm going to be talking about for this book. So the new theater teacher has announced that casting this year will be inclusive, right? To the great unhappiness of the parent group that later names itself Parents Against Revisionist Theater, PART. This Kansas high school is overwhelmingly white, and previous casts in school plays have also been overwhelmingly white. So this move by the theater teacher is quite a brave move and a new move, right? And after, casting has occurred, things really start getting bigger and more intense in terms of the response of the community and the students. All the students are talking about the issue, particularly because the main roles in The Wizard of Oz are all cast to students of color, among those being Huey, who's a freshman, but who's a very talented freshman, and he is cast as the Tin Man. And as time goes by, there's lots of discussion going on everywhere. And then these students of color who are cast in major roles, they begin to get anonymous letters at their homes, and in their letters that are vaguely threatening. There's no threat sort of clearly articulated, but they're very disturbing. And so all of the parents meet and they decide that they don't want to give this action attention, so they don't actually report it to anyone. And it's a bit of a secret among those cast members and their family. So Louise is feeling pretty odd about this. She's on the school paper, but she can't tell anyone about this. And as things are getting more and more intense, Lou's involvement with journalism is getting more intense. Not only in terms of this story, which she's increasingly invested in and interested in getting the coverage, she's begun a promising romance with another new student who his name is Joey, and he is her partner in the journalism projects, both in terms of writing. They're both on features, but he's also sort of an amazing photographer and videographer. So she's working with him all the time. And the romance blooms and is getting quite serious. Also, Joey happens to be Lebanese American, not very common in this Kansas town. Now, Joey has never engaged in or ignored or laughed at the kinds of racism that Lou sort of witnesses and has to struggle through invisibly most of the time on a day-to-day basis. And essentially, because she looks like she's white, people make these jokes all the time. And she has struggled with the fact that, she should say something every single time, and also struggled with the fact that that would be exhausting and alienating. And, she's got journalism going for her. You need connections for this work of journalism. She doesn't want to be painted any certain way because of the fact that she's Indigenous and is actually hurt by many of these comments. She does sometimes stand up and say something, and people are often a little confused. But she's not sort of out as being Muskogee, and which is also a bit odd because, Huey physically is much more obviously not white, right? He has darker skin. I don't think anyone necessarily recognizes him as Indigenous, but they definitely know he's not white. And a lot of people probably think he's Mexican or something because they don't have any idea. And no one thinks to ask. So as she's falling in love with Joey. And she feels like she has to tell him that she is Muskogee. And she's trying to figure out the best way to do it. I mean, they've been together for a long time. They're very, very close. And it's an awkward thing to be like, hey, I'm Native. I'm Muskogee. And she thinks that that's just too weird. So she's literally obsessing about it, thinking. And she finally comes up with a way to do it. And this way sort of reveals something about Lou, about how self-centered she can be. And there are more instances of that in the book that I've skipped. But it ends up being disastrous before she can even get to the point where she tells him. And he essentially explodes and won't speak to her. And, the novel progresses, covering this story, covering every story. They're supposed to be working together, but they end up not. He doesn't want to see her, so that gets complicated. The history of Frank Baum is discovered by Huey, and that makes everything more complicated for him. And she keeps trying in every way she can think of to tell Joey how much she screwed up and how what he thought she was saying was not actually what she was saying. And to tell him what she really wanted to do was reveal her full self to him. And it's a hard thing to do. So that's what I'm going to tell you. I'm also going to tell you that I love this book. It's got great humor. There are funny parts. The way the school is manipulated, and you're never quite sure who's manipulating them, right? You don't know who is in part, and you don't know who among the rest of the community or students are also working to manipulate students, to manipulate faculty, to force faculty to do things differently, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Also, the journalism class is being affected by this. And they're getting pressure, serious pressure. And so it's a great novel about a great number of things. And, I wish I could tell you about her extended family and who she works with and, the members of her extended family who she goes to for help with her problems and the way that sort of that larger Native family plays such a role in her life and how she makes decisions. But I don't have time to do that. But Lou is somebody you'll fall in love with. You'll fall in love with Joey. You might fall in love with Huey. You might fall in love with some of the cousins. Her best friend, who I haven't even mentioned, Shelby. Probably fall in love with her too. But I definitely recommend it. It's a great read, and it illuminates so many things through so many angles, and it's so committed to telling a real truth through fiction, and not being oversimple. And I really want to get that across, because it's not sort of banging you over the head with anything. I mean, there's a pretty clear conflict, but people involved in that conflict in various ways have a hard time figuring out what they should do. And because there are lots of different pressures on them. And they're human. Even the people who do things that we might be disgusted with as readers. These characters remain human, and they remain complex. And they are made complex by sin. So definitely check it out. It's a great read. It's pretty new. Hearts Unbroken by Cynthia Lydick Smith. And we've got it here. I will be returning it. So anybody who would like to can check it out. And again, please, please, please register for our events. They're both going to be great. And I'll be honest, I'm so nervous. We've got this one tomorrow and just 2 registrations from last week before I changed the date, and that's it. And Antonio, he wants to be interacting with kids. He wants to be interacting with folks. And he asked that I change this, that maybe we could get some more. And I wasn't able to get any more registrations. And I feel terrible about that. But if you're not doing anything, it's Friday, there's no school. Come on, it won't take that much long. It's not like going to school, okay? You're going to listen to Antonio for a little while, but then you're going to get to talk to him and talk to your peers about it. Okay. So please, please, please register. That said, I'm going to switch to my regular life. Well, not my regular, but I just want to tell you that we miss you. We really miss hanging out. We miss having people hang out in the library. And we know, just like everybody else knows, that it's getting worse right now. So we want to encourage everyone to be as safe as you can be, okay? Yes, you're young. You might feel invincible, but your family isn't invincible. Your parents aren't. Your grandparents aren't. You might not be, okay? Bad things happen to young people who catch this virus. Not as often, but they can. And also, because it's getting so stressful, I want you to take care of your mental health, okay? If you really need help right away, call the crisis center, call a hotline. Nothing bad is going to happen if you do those things. They will just talk to you, okay? And they won't judge you. They'll just talk to you. Nothing bad is going to happen. Nobody's going to come and knock on your door and drag you away because you're having a tough time. All they want to do is talk to you about your tough time and listen, really. They want to listen. So if you need to vent about some feelings you're having, call those numbers and people will listen, okay? I want you to know that we care, that we miss you, and that we're worried about you. And I'm about to cry because, that's me. I'm a goofball who most of the time can't cry enough, but whenever I start worrying about you guys, watch out. Anyway, take care. I hope to see you again. Or not, actually, I don't see you. I hope you get to see me again pretty soon. And be well. Okay, bye-bye.